In a rematch of last season's opening week thriller, the Cowboys host the Buccaneers as 2.5-point home underdogs for a showdown with a total of 51. Kyle, it is looking like all 4 of Tom Brady's top receivers are going to be healthy, is what I wrote before Chris Godwin said he was a game time decision. And he was practiced in full on Wednesday. Did not practice on Thursday. Definitely seems like some sort of pre-planned load management type thing, but it seems like he's going to be a game time decision. If he were to play, I mean, could he be trusted as a wide receiver 2? Do you get him in there as a wide receiver 3 just because he's Chris Godwin? What would be our advice to fantasy managers about probably the most discussed player from this game, Chris Godwin?
Yeah, definitely the most interesting player from this game. I mean, Godwin was so good last year. Through his 14 weeks last year before he went down with that ACL tear, he was 9th in targets and 2nd in red zone targets. He was the wide receiver 5 in PPR. And despite being a really strong red zone weapon, he was actually had the fewest receiving touchdowns of any top 10 receiver through 14 weeks. So there was room for him to potentially be like the number 2 or 3 receiver. So sure, maybe he goes out and you know, you're risking it. We have no clue what kind of snap count he's going to be on, but it's so worth the risk. He is the clear number 1 for Tom Brady. If he is active, I'm playing him. And if he goes out and plays 12 snaps, like egg on my face, I'm shooting for the moon here.
Denny, I want to ask you, that was a pretty good Chris Godwin breakdown. So I'll ask you about the guys behind Chris Godwin. Right. If he plays or if he doesn't play, Julio Jones versus Russell Gage. Russell Gage like barely practiced this summer. Yeah. He's healthy now. Julio Jones in an about face practiced all summer and is healthy. How do you break down Julio Jones versus Russell Gage behind Mike Evans and Chris Godwin?
The folks forget that Julio was actually pretty good when he was healthy in the Titans offense
for all 2 halves
last year. Really it was 2.5 games is what it was. And you know, that is it encouraging for the long view of Julio in 2022? No, it's not. Okay. I don't think anybody's expecting that he's going to suit up for 17 games this year. But as long as he's healthy, I really think that he is the number 3 option, I guess. Yeah, we'll call him number 3 option in an offense, by the way, that we just saw last season can support 3 fantasy viable wide receivers. And so I do like him over Gage.
And Tom Brady's the kind of guy, when he gets a player like Julio Jones, it's not like, well, Tom Brady didn't mesh with this really good player. Like he gets them the ball.
That's right.
Dude, he like meshed with Antonio Brown and Josh Gordon, like the most unmeshable players I could possibly imagine. He's going to make it work with Julio.
He's going to vibe with Julio, right, Kyle?
You got it. Again, I've said this a few times. You use the words correctly, and they just don't sound good.
No, they sound offensive, honestly.
They actually do. Yeah, I never want to say vibe non-ironically.
Please don't.
Kyle, do we have any Leonard Fournette worries? I kind of tried to like create a Leonard Fournette panic all summer. And now it seems like it's kind of coming to fruition where it seems like Rachaad White might actually have a legitimate role as the number 2, or is that the kind of thing, believe it when you see it, especially with Tom Brady, who's not going to let a rookie running back miss a pass block. What is the Leonard Fournette lay of the land right now?
Yeah, I think last year Fournette was just too good to take off the field. And by too good, I mean perfectly fine. I don't mean he was elite at anything, but he didn't do anything poorly. He was 28th out of 67 qualified running backs in yards per route run. He was 18th out of 52 running backs in rushing yards over expected. He was good on the ground. He was good through the air. He's trusted by Tom Brady. I really don't think they're taking him off the field other than to slightly manage his load. Because, the worry is really he's a 27-year-old running back with a history of injuries and a really good rookie behind him. But he did nothing last year to not bring back the exact same job he saw. Like, as long as he's healthy and they're not using, and I don't think they will, use Rachaad White in a significant pass-catching role, like, you're locking him in for top 10 numbers. The offense is just too good not to.
I will say, I think you keep Rachaad White rostered in even 12-team leagues for at least 2 or 3 weeks just to kind of see how the situation unfolds. Because Leonard Fournette is just not an efficient pass catcher. He is a good pass blocker, I guess, but he is one of the least explosive, like high-volume pass-catching backs there are. And so I wouldn't be surprised, like if Rachaad White stays on like the straight and narrow, if they do give him a role, and at least keep him rostered. But yeah, you can't have any week 1 expectations for Rachaad White. Denny, I was going to ask you a question that we already talked about on the Tuesday podcast, like who the Cowboys' number 2 and 3 weapons are. You just want to regurgitate what you already said.
Look, the Bucs are probably going to once again be a pass funnel, and that's could be good stuff for whoever gets that number 2 role behind CeeDee Lamb in the Dallas offense this week. We talked about, on the Tuesday show, how that's probably Dalton Schultz. But I think that it also speaks possibly highly, potentially, of Tony Pollard if they are really going to involve him as a pass catcher, not just as someone who gives a breather to Ezekiel Elliott. That he could be interesting for this game. The Cowboys are not. I don't believe there are very few scenarios where they are going to be able to establish to their heart's content, and that means lots of passes, and that means that somebody's going to got to get the ball besides CeeDee Lamb.
In theory, they do.
We'll
see. 10 to 12 CeeDee Lamb targets sounds very, very plausible this week.
Sure. Oh, yeah, definitely.
Is Dak Prescott, by the way, a top 12 quarterback? I haven't ranked outside the top 12 this week.
I think based on potential volume, yes.
It's going to be too late by the time people hear this. So the answer will be, would you have ranked Matthew Stafford or Dak Prescott higher this week?
I would go Dak.
I did Stafford higher.
I don't have a strong take on this. They're very similar profiles of like one elite receiver, question marks behind them, but in a game that should be fun. Also, the defense they're facing is a bit good though. So
I think Dak can get there just on like junk volume.
You can send me through the post if my Dak or my Matthew Stafford ranking ahead of Dak Prescott was correct, because by the time you listen to this podcast, that game will have already been played.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and Rotoworld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from Rotoworld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.